When I get in a sales meeting, I want to give every opportunity to find a way in. So with the lady from the big bank, it was Taylor Swift. I asked her how she was. She said she was tired. I asked why. She said, well, Taylor Swift. We're in. We can build a rapport. On this call I did, I asked people to tell me their story. If you have two people who know how to do salsa, they can just dance together because they feel the rhythm. But from my understanding, the guy leads with his hand and leads the dance. That's sales meetings. After 35 years of doing sales, you know what I realized? That if the client or the person across the table is not feeling that they have a rapport with you, you're not going to be able to sell to them. Building rapport with people takes time to learn how to do it. And I tell you, I am going to give you what I have learned. It is one of the most amazing feelings. You want to feel great about sales is get into a room with a person and understand how you build that rapport, that trust, that feeling that when the client is leaning in towards you, this is the physical manifestation of it. There's nothing better than when you're in a sales meeting and you're talking to them and you can see it, you can feel it, that they are leaning in, that they're fully attentive to you. Their phone is gone, their eyes, you can see it. And even today, whether it's on Zoom or in the room's so much better, but on Zoom, you know when they're listening and you know when they are typing or on their phone or not with you. So that's what we're going to talk about. How do you build rapport in a sales meeting? How do you build trust, likability, and that sense that you are together? So I'm going to take you through some of those methods that I found, but I'm going to take you way back to the very beginning when I started. And actually, not the first year, but the first year I arrived in Asia. There is a saying in Asia called Guanji. I may have pronounced it wrong, or it's in China, and it really means network. It means your relationship with a person. And think about it. Who are you most likely to buy from? If there's two people selling you something, the one you have a great relationship with or the one you don't know? You're always buying from the person with the great relationship. But what if there's two salespeople and you've both met this person the client for the first time? You both have the same product at the same price with the same timeline of delivery. Who are they buying from? And again, now that I say it, it seems obvious. They're buying from the person they have the relationship with. So when I first came to Asia in 1992, I went to a meeting. I was living in Hong Kong, and I went to a meeting, and I remember I was like, here's my product, will you buy it? And the person I was with looked at me, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, literally, what are you doing? Why are you asking them to buy that product? I remember saying, I'm a salesperson with 1 year experience. I remember saying, well, I'm here to sell them. And he looked at me, it's like, you're not here to sell them. You're here to build a relationship so they can decide whether to buy from you or not. And there it is right there. Think about that. You're there to build a relationship so they can decide if they want to buy from you. Put aside the product for a minute. Put aside the delivery a minute. Put aside the price. Of course they're important, but the product is the product. The price is the price. The delivery is the delivery. You are there, and I love this framework. It's a performance. You're on stage. Even when you're on Zoom doing a pitch, and I don't love the word pitch, and I'll tell you why the words pitch and rapport, they don't sit together, because I don't think you build a rapport by pitching. But think about this. In the meeting, you are there as a performer to make that other person feel great, to make that other person feel you, and to be in a mind frame that they can be like, yeah, I'd like to buy from this guy. So from that very first day, I realized you can't sell by just selling. So how do we build a rapport? If you're fresh to sales, or even if you've been in a while, you'll know that let's look at a sales meeting, because we're trying to build rapport with anybody, but everything's sales. So let's literally take a sales meeting. When you walk into that meeting, number one, you have to be a bundle of good energy. It doesn't mean that you have to be jumping all over the room, but you have to put out positive energy immediately. Here's one thing that I've learned. You want to have the best start to your meeting. Now, we're doing a lot on Zoom today, but forgive me, because I am 57 and I have spent 35 years thinking about sales every day. If you are shown to a room and they say, wait here for the person, you know what the number one thing is you never do? You know it? Yeah, you never sit down. If they say, please sit here, you never sit down. Why? Because you must stand until the guest, who is your client, and remember, you're a guest, but they're a guest because they've come to this meeting. Until the client comes in, you must stand up. I put my computer square on the table. I don't have a pen or a notebook, but I put my phone there if I have my glasses, and I stand there, almost like ready. I try not to walk around the room. It's a discipline I have for myself. So I am at the most welcoming. I'm standing, smiling, looking at the door. Because imagine they come in and you're looking out the window. And you're in New York and you're looking at Central Park. That's not welcoming because then you're focused on something else. So number one, to build rapport, that first initial impression is everything. And it can be game-changing. Because when they walk in and you're there and you're positive, they're like, okay. Immediately, they think, I like this dude. This is good. And the next thing is, of course, you're saying hello, but this is the rapport. People are going to make a decision about you really quickly. Now, we know some obvious steps to make a bad impression, right? You don't say hello, you don't shake hands, and you don't, look them in the eye. Those simple things are very obvious to you, right? If you walked into a room and somebody didn't shake your hand, didn't look you in the eye, and didn't speak, you're not buying from them. But on the converse side of this, we need to up our game. So how do you build that rapport with somebody? So the obvious things, look them in the eye, shake their hands, repeat their name so it's clear, but then ask them about them. There's always something. There's always something. Hey, how far have you come today? Hey, how has your day been? They could be wearing like a sports shirt or like a New York Yankees cap or whatever it might be. Train yourself that the first question you have to say after you get into that meeting is find something that you can help them talk about themselves. And as soon as they talk about themselves, lead that into another question. Now, it's not endless. You don't want to be asking them, 20 questions, 30 questions. But always look for that ability for them to talk about themselves. Why? People like to talk about themselves. That's sales. It's not you talking about you. Remember, it's the sales guy, sales lady. No one cares about you. It's not about you. It's not about what you say. It's about how you make them feel. And how do you make somebody feel great? Give them the space to tell their story. And that's what we need to practice. So I'm over 25,000 sales meetings, and I still remember some of the greatest meetings. Some of the greatest meetings is when we almost didn't talk about the product. We just got on fantastic. We got on great. And it's a practice that I have learned each time. So you get in the meeting, and as you start to ask these questions, if you can find that there's a path to start to build that relationship, do it. So the framework is this. Imagine you met somebody in a coffee shop for a coffee. What would you do? You want to build that relationship. If you've come to meet a friend, or not even a friend, somebody you don't know, you've been set up to go from that way, and you're just meeting somebody in a coffee shop, you are building that relationship. And think about what you would say in that area. I'm going to tell you a cool story that just happened to me. So I went to meet the head of one of the world's largest banks. And she was like the head of Asia, exactly who I needed to pitch for my fintech. And she came in the room. I said, hey, it's great to meet you. How are you doing? She said, to be honest, I'm a little tired. Now, I could have said, I hope you're okay. I said, why are you tired? She said, I had a late night. I said, what were you doing? And, she was somebody who was probably not out partying. She said, I actually went to see Taylor Swift with my daughter. And so my daughter is a massive Tay-Tay fan. We must have spent 40 minutes. So I have listened to Taylor's songs. They're pretty good. This lady has listened. And we both connected because our daughters are massive fans and we found it. We spent 40 minutes deciphering the lyrics of all the Taylor Swift songs on her latest album, Dead Poets. Dead Poets Society? Not that. That's what a film was. You know what I mean. And you could really feel it in that moment. Because after 40 minutes, we only had 20 minutes left for the meeting. And her demeanor, her actions, her feelings towards the product I was selling was already up here. You could see it like, this looks great. It's a really good product. But I didn't tell her what the product was. The feeling was the rapport, the trust came from these shared experiences. So now, obviously, the one thing you mustn't do is make up shared experiences. So there are some clear ways that you can, but you must listen, give them the space to speak, reply the best as you can. And here is something that I see salespeople get wrong all the time. Somebody says, I went to this country. And the other person goes, I did too. I went on holiday and I saw X, Y, Z. That wasn't what they said. That wasn't what they asked. They didn't ask you, did you go? You were stepping away from the reality of the conversation by moving it across to you. There's a mental framework here, which is you have to go to them to get them to come to you. So you can see I'm at a table, and often sales meetings, this is so strange to me. Sales meetings is when somebody sits on the other side of the table. Why don't you sit on the same side? I actually worked for a boss. It was just a guy called Angus MacDonald, one of the greatest salespeople. He would come in, sit on this side of the table, and then once he sat on that side, the client would come in and sit on the other side, and Angus would get up, walk around and say, hey, is it okay if I come and sit next to you? And he would literally walk around and sit next to the client. I actually watched him do this with the CEO of JP Morgan. Not Jamie Dimon, it was way before. It was wild. And you could see the person going, what? And if, that's probably right at the outer limits of what you can do. It's like, I'll just turn up at someone's house unannounced. But you could sense it. He did it with a smile. He did it with good sense. And he had 30 years sales experience. If you have 30 years and you're still listening to this, that's fantastic. But if you don't, and you get yourself to a sales meeting, and you just can't figure out how to build that rapport, give them the space to speak. Ask some questions about themselves. Don't bring yourself into that conversation until it's relevant. On the other side of it, today I was on a call with a group of young founders. And I was asking each of them, so I was teaching them sales. And I was asking each of them, hey, tell me and I always say this, I don't say tell me about you, I said, tell me your story. Before I talk about sales, tell me your story. And a couple of people got it right, they told me then. And one person, they just read out their website. They said, hello, I represent blockchain company XYZ. Blockchain company XYZ does X, Y, and Z. I don't care, there's no rapport. And you could sense it through the call, we didn't have a rapport. The person who said, hey, so I'm not sure why I'm a founder. I fell into this and I probably should have stayed in the corporate 9 to 5. I was like, hey man, well, I would love to hear more about it. From a founder perspective, I know that's hard. Why did you make that choice? And we had a great little conversation. It was like a 2-minute conversation. And you know what happened? At the end of that call, I said to everybody, all right, you can drop me a note whenever you like. If you want some sales tips, just hit me up. And the person who read out their website to me did not hit me up. And you know why? Because, well, let me say it directly. Partly, I don't think they quite get it. But they could sense that we didn't have a rapport. Whereas the other guy who we had this rapport with, now it does take two to tango, but you're the controller of that. You're the person that can set the tone to make that happen. Because I could have said, hey, everybody, please read me out your 5-line pitch. And that's all I want. So I could have set the tone. But I gave them the chance to open that door for the rapport to be built. You have to always do that, because as you do that, you're almost, I love this phrase, increasing your surface area of luck. And that's how you build rapport. What do I mean by surface area of luck? When I get in a sales meeting, I want to give every opportunity to find a way in. So with the lady from the big bank, it was Taylor Swift. I asked her how she was. She said she was tired. I asked why. She said, well, Taylor Swift. We're in. We can build a rapport. On this call I asked people to tell me their story, right? When you go to a sales meeting, I don't dance salsa. My brother does. He's a salsa teacher. And he says, yeah, if you have two people who know how to do salsa, they can just dance together because they feel the rhythm. But from my understanding, the guy leads with his hand and leads the dance. That's sales meetings. That's it. Seriously. Like, there's no better feeling than getting into a meeting. And look, here's the secret. You want to know the real secret? They think they're running the meeting. Like, when you get up to the top level of this game, they think they're running the meeting. But you are. Because you've given them the chance to run the meeting. But you set it up. You set up the opportunity. I can feel it now. I love sales meetings. I'm never nervous. Not because I'm some, cocky douchebag. Well, maybe I am. That's for you to decide. But I just know the dance. Like, I can feel it. I'm 25,000 sales meetings into this. I can just feel it. I know how it works. I know how to do it. And even in so I can even handle the most difficult situation when somebody doesn't really want to speak. And these tips, tricks, and they're not tricks, they're great human attributes. Positivity, smiling, giving them the chance to speak, not about you, always about them. Of course, you can say a little bit about you, but your role is to make them feel like they're having a great time. You're a performer. And this goes for pretty much life. You get to practice this. So I'm going to give you a skill set to practice. And I practice this a lot. And this is how you practice sales. You practice them in the life moments. And this is just great human skills. Okay, next time you get in a taxi, an Uber, next time you get in a car driven by someone, your goal in that conversation is that when you get out, so you're in the back of the car, so imagine I'm the driver, they're in the back seat. Your goal when you leave the car, is to get the driver to turn around and look you in the eye and say, hey, thank you, man. That was a good conversation. I appreciate it. They've got to turn around because they've got to look you in the eye. You know why? Because then you built rapport. How do you do that? So every time I get into a taxi, what I do is I get in. I'm like, hey, man, how's your day? It's the simplest. Has it been busy? Did you just start? Like, let's say you're getting a 5 a.m. ride to the airport. Hey, man, are you finishing a night shift? Or did you just start? Oh, I just started. Oh, you live nearby? I mean, if you cannot get a conversation with a taxi driver, listen to more of my podcasts. Listen to more sales, because you're not even in I hate to say this, but we're all big boys and girls here. I might as well just be direct. If you can't start a conversation with a taxi driver, you maybe shouldn't be in sales. Now, some taxi drivers don't want to speak, and that's okay. Hey, how you doing, man? Oh, yeah, I'm okay. I'm focused on the road. Fine, leave it. Let it be. But you have to be able to start it, and most taxi drivers will chat to you because, their job's pretty dull. Ask about them. Ask about the taxi business. Ask why they're doing it. If they're an older person, so I live in Singapore, there's a lot of older taxi drivers. They're called uncles, and they're like 65 or 70. Obvious question. Hey, and they're doing taxi driving for retirement. What did you do before this? I met a guy the other day. He said, oh, I used to paint aircraft. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Singapore Airlines, I used to paint the Singapore Airline logo on aircrafts. I'm like, oh, wow, how long did you do that for? You ready? 46 years. I'm like, dude, you 46 years? So every aircraft I've ever seen, you painted the logo on? He's like, yeah. We had such a great conversation, like so great. And when I left, he turned around and said, thank you, man. You made my day. Hey, if you can make someone's day, you know how to build rapport. Here's the other way. You know when you're in a coffee shop and you're ordering a coffee? So you're in Starbucks. Okay, number one, this is a side tip. Side tip, if you're with somebody and they don't say thank you to a waiter or a server, if you're interviewing them, don't employ them. If they're your good friend, tell them off. If they're just somebody you're getting to know, I'm just going to say, don't get to know them. There is no excuse. You cannot build rapport if you cannot say thank you. But what you should be doing is everybody in Starbucks or it has a little name tag. Jane, John, David, whatever. You don't say thank you for the coffee. You look at the name tag, say, thank you, Jane. Appreciate it. And so often, they look up and go, oh, thanks. There it is, right there. Do that every time. I always do it. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, John. Thank you, the taxi driver. You practice. I'm practicing sales all day long. I go running a lot. What do I do when I run past somebody? I say hello. I want them to say hello, even in that fleeting moment. So what do? As they're running towards me, maybe people think I'm a psycho weirdo, but as they run towards me, I lift my head up, I look them in the eyes, and I smile. I'm like, hey, man. Hey, how you doing? You're practicing rapport all the time. Because as you get further in your career, as you do more sales, the more people you know, the more you can sell. The way you influence, the way you get rapport, you can create rapport for anyone is A, learn the skills, B, practice, and C, be pretty fanatical about it. It is the greatest human skill I think you can ever have. I don't think it can be replaced by AI. I don't think it can be replaced any other way. Okay. That is building rapport. As you can see, I get pretty fired up. I absolutely adore it. Think about it in every context of what you're doing and practice it as often as you can. When you're having a coffee, when you're in the taxi, think of other moments as well. Any other moment, think about it. And then when you're in that sales meeting, you're a performer. Give them room to speak, listen, let the small talk run. And at the end of that sales call, at the end of this podcast, what I want to tell you is this. You will know, you will feel it if the rapport is there. Because if they can't wait to get out the room, but you can feel it. If they shake your hand in the right way. And I don't think there's a lot of better feelings because you did what you were there to do. You were there to build really what is an invisible thing. And with your own voice and your own behavior, you created an invisible thing. How cool is that? Everybody, get out and sell, build that rapport, get practicing. And that taxi driver, make them turn around and say thank you to you. Thank you for watching the podcast. One of the many I'm doing about sales. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you here next time. Take care.